Hello everyone, my name is Rooley. You can call me Dragon Lord Supreme, we're here, fits the theme, makes sense. Or you could call me Seto Kaiwa's great-great-grandson. Yeah, we're playing dragons. We played dragons. Went 4-0 at the casual tournament hosted in the Elestrals Discord on August 6th. And it was a lot of fun. It was the first time playing this deck in a tournament setting. I've mostly just been playing it for fun and building it. My main inspiration for building it was I just wanted to make a combination of a wind and frost deck, since they're pretty much my two favorite elements. I just wanted to see what I could do, and then I noticed that, hey, frost has big dragons that can ascend quickly, and wind has a big dragon that can ascend quickly. I wonder if they can work together. So I've just been mashing them up, trying to put them together. And this is the deck that I came out with, and we went 4-0 and it performed pretty well. I do think that there is a different way to think about this deck and to build it, but the way that I did it was just kind of trying to make it as competitive as possible by using the strengths of both of these dragons. So the strengths of both of these dragons are using Hydrake late in the game, when removal is low and everything is down low, to kind of be the knockout punch, and then using Cryoling, Cryovern earlier in the game to set up that advantage to win late game. So I just want to talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of the deck. The pros, there's a few of them. The first one is that this deck is extremely fast and aggressive. While a lot of aggressive decks can take time, this one happens very fast, and that's because of the second reason is this deck can abuse the mulliganing system. Abuse might be the right word, but be rewarded for using it. And that is because Cryoling needs Frost in the Underworld, and so by using the mulliganing system, you're getting Frost in the Underworld immediately, and that's just setting you up to get Cryovern out very quickly and setting the pace and forcing your opponent to go through a lot to constantly try to get rid of those Cryoverns early in the game, and then setting you up for a late game Pantera. Now in my gameplay that we'll have after this deck profile, I never got out Pantera. Cryovern just kind of won on its own. I did use Hydrakes as just another body on the field. You'll see kind of why that works out actually pretty well, and that's actually a mainstay advantage in this deck. Is going to be misenjanning Hydrake very often. But then I want to talk about a few of the cons of this deck. The first con is this deck is very susceptible to removal. Pantera and Cryovern, they can't stop Earthquakes, Laurels, so you're going to have to try and play around Laurels, you're going to have to expect Earthquakes, you're going to have to try and play around PTAs. All these different things you have to really try and push for. This deck was very good in the best of one setting, but there's definitely some side deck cards that I would consider to kind of handle your opponent maybe bringing in more removal for games 2 and 3. The second con of this deck is it is very expensive, so burn in a best of one format will get you. I got lucky, and in my fourth game I played against burn and my opponent just didn't draw it. Lucky me, but that's what games 2 and 3 are for. So there's definitely things you can do in the side deck to make this deck better. This deck also gets a ton better with Daybreak, and I'm excited. I will, once Daybreak is official in the Tuesday casual tourneys, I will go ahead and make this deck with the new Daybreak cards and see if there is an even better way to play this deck. I know cards like Cryoblast will for sure be in here, as well as maybe you throw in Pulsars or something like that to kind of aid in the deck, but I'll just go right into that now that you kind of know the pros and cons. I feel like it's easier to understand the deck profile now that you can kind of understand where I'm coming from and the reasons to play it. So we're going to start off with the dragons. You're going to have the typical Pantera line, and then the typical Cryovern Cryoling line. I don't play Cryo Scourge just because that's too many big dragons. You could try it out, but you're setting yourself up to brick even more than you probably already do. I got lucky and didn't brick, but that's where the mulliganing system really helps you, because if you draw any of these, you just mulligan. You see them, like you could literally draw it up, see it, just throw it away. Just put it back in, draw again. But yeah, it works out really well. Like I said, this is your early game strategy, and this is your late game strategy. So you kind of just use that to your advantage, knowing that. The deck is very, I'd say, simple to play because your game plan is very linear, and you know what you're trying to do, which doesn't make it bad. I don't like the connotation that like just because it's a simpler deck that it's like necessarily a bad deck. I think it just really helps guide you, and you still need to execute, which takes a lot of skill expression. So I really enjoyed it. It's very similar feeling of playing like Five Guys, except for you're going very tall with lots of attack instead of wide with 5 attack. So it's fun. After that, we're playing 1 Infrostix and 1 Arcturus. Arcturus is MVP, no doubt about it. Won me probably 3 or 4 of my games. Like this card came in so clutch. I would definitely, in the next build, I'm going to probably play 1 or 2 more of this. 2 is probably fine. The nice part is you're playing 4 copies of this because we are playing Narpoon, so you do get to see it pretty often, so you don't have to play too many copies of it, but it is really nice to see. And Infrostix is just another card that helps you turbo out Cryoling a little bit faster, especially if, say, like you don't have enough Frost Spirits in the Underworld. You can use Infrostix, get back Cryoling. Now you've gotten 2 more in the Underworld, and now you can get rolling with your Cryo Verns. So it does really help out. It's not. I like Arcturus more than Infrostix, honestly, because Arcturus does the same thing early in the game, where you are putting Frost into your Underworld to get Cryoling's effect off as quick and early as possible, as well as Arcturus is getting over everything. Early in the game, there's not too many cards that Arcturus can't get over. It can go over an opponent's Cryovern. Like, there's not much that you're really worried about with using Arcturus, and it kind of just gets you exactly what you want early in the game. After that, just playing the toolbox cards. We're playing 3 Narpoon, search out any of our Frost Elestrals, good on its own being a water Elestral, and then being immune to Tsunami, and also having being aggressive with the 4 attack. You'll notice that I have no real defensive Elestrals in here because that just slows down the game and allows your opponent to draw on what they need, and you don't want that to happen. You want to be constantly like putting your opponent on the back foot and not allowing them to get any sort of advantage that way. So Narpoon really helps out with being offensive. And the last is going to be 3 Jolton. This is probably a little overkill, but I'll explain my reasoning for it. I think you could probably add in some Elichiks and some Zeuses and stuff, which would actually help out. But we're playing the 3 Jolton for the 2 Mountain of Boreas. Mountain Boreas is really kind of a key card in this deck because it helps you get out Cryoling into Cryovern earlier in the game, as well as it allows you to misenchant some of your other 4 attackers. It's going to get Arcturus up to 4, so there's a lot of natural things happening. Yeah, so you're getting to 4 attack, and there's a lot of natural, like, getting your 4s up to 5s is always a good deal, as well as boosting out Arcturus, your Narpoons, your Joltons, as well as, like I said before, your Hydrakes. So there's a lot of times where you're going to have, if you have Mountains of Boreas up in the field and you don't really need the Pantera line, like you've already got advantage on the board, which you'll see I've had in this a few of my games, you're just going to bring a Hydrake out with the Frost, and it's going to be a 5 attacker, and you're going to use it that way, as well as you don't always need to go straight up to you don't always need to go straight up to Pantera. You can use Twindra and do 2 Frosts on it, and if you have Mountain Boreans up now to 7, now it's pretty much another Cryovern. So you can definitely use that to your advantage. You don't need to go to Pantera, as fun as it is. It's like, that's kind of like the end game. But mid-game, you could definitely use Hydrake in a multitude of ways, and Mountains of Boreas gives you a lot of advantage when being aggressive. So next we have 1 copy of Kione. You could probably cut this if you really wanted to. My whole thought process on it was it's a cheaper way to recover a Cryoling than Infrostix, because you don't play like a ton of Frost Spirits in here. You are using them up right away as well. So sometimes, like the one game it came up where it was nice where I only had 2 Frost Spirits left, so I was able to use Kione, get back a Cryoling, bring out Cryoling with that 2nd Frost Spirit, and now I can misenchant that Cryovern, and then it puts me back in that position where if you have 3, you need 3 or more Frost to do that with Infrostics, so it's just kind of a cheaper Infrostics in that kind of situation. Infrostics is better because you special summon, so you can still normal summon, so having the versatility of having both of them is nice. I will say the fact that I'm playing Kione, I would consider trying to fit in like 2 Elechiks and then running a Kione and a Zeus, so that way Zeus could help just get over anything that, say, like my 4s couldn't get over, or Elechik could get over any of those 4s, as well as I would definitely be playing like Cryoblast, so like Zeus and Cryoblast have some synergy, as well as Cryoblast is just an insane card on its own. So there's definitely lots to come with Daybreak, and I think we'll probably mess it up with like adding Zeus and different cards like that. Next is going to be 2 Blizzards. I could definitely think I could see myself running 3. It just sucks to draw it constantly when you're looking to be like more aggressive, but at the same time this card helps you be aggressive. This card actually came in pretty clutch a lot of the times because you're able to snipe back row and they're not able to chain things like Tsunami or Gorgon's Gaze that could potentially harm your aggressive strategy in the long run. Especially like say you have a Cryoburn up, they have an Astrabbit. If you use Thunderstorm and they just Gorgon's Gaze your Cryoburn, you're not getting over that Astrabbit, and now they're getting more advantage. So Blizzard's effect to destroy counter like face down runes is good for us because that's what we're most afraid of, as well as them not being able to chain it helps us stay aggressive. So Blizzard, you'll see in the games, actually came up pretty clutch. I think 2 is okay, but you could consider running 3 as well. Drops of Leaf is probably my biggest regret in the whole scheme of things. The obvious reason to play Drops of Leaf is you're playing a lot of big dragons. You don't want them in your hand, you want to special cast them from deck. So the idea is to use Drops of Leaf when you draw them. But the thing about Drops of Leaf is it's pretty much a dead card if you want everything that you have in your hand, which when you don't draw the dragons, this card never resolves very well. So I would honestly just take the bricks as they come because you're mulliganing so much, and I'm definitely in the future going to replace these for Nectar of the Gods, because Nectar of the Gods helps facilitate putting Frost into your Underworld, as well as getting cards like just getting advantage card wise, so you just deal with keeping the big dragons in your hand, and then there is going to be opportunities where you can special ascend. You're misenchanting these dragons all the time, so it doesn't really matter who you special ascend over with your bigger dragons. So it's definitely something that could come up, and so you're not going to feel too bad. The only thing you're going to feel bad about is if you're drawing it one after another, which you're playing bricks in your deck. Like those games are going to happen, but the mulliganing rules and different cards like Nectar of the Gods can help it, where you're still taking enough advantage to not worry about the bricks that are in your hand. So you're just going to have to take the risk when playing a deck like this. The next is going to be the pretty much standard lineup of counter runes. We're doing 3 Gorgon's Gaze, 2 Poison-Tipped Arrows, 2 Resting on Your Laurels for early game advantage. I would definitely, these are coming out, I'm putting in 3 Cryoblasts right away as soon as Daybreak comes out. Cryoblast is just a far superior card in my mind to Resting on Your Laurels. So those Laurels comes out right away. It never really came up for me today. And the way this deck plays, it's nice to have some sort of offensive removal on your turn, but Laurels just didn't really do anything for me today. 2 Shield I would also consider cutting for something else, potentially like Chains of Prometheus or something along those lines to help be more aggressive with my big dragons, so that way if they do have counter runes that can stop them or remove them, I could just use Chains and negate it, so that's definitely an option. 3 Ambrosia because this deck is expensive, and once you have those 5 Frost in the Underworld, the rest of your deck is kind of tight, so you want to be able to bring back anything that you might need. So you just want to be able to, it's just because any deck that's expensive, you want to run 3 because you don't feel bad seeing 2. You could consider it. You could consider running 2 and just hoping you get 1 late game. That's, I think, completely fine, and this deck would probably do okay with it. I just like to see it no matter what. And then 3 Tsunami, which is A big reason to play this deck is because you are immune to your opponent's tsunamis most of the time. Cryoverns are usually misenchanted with waters, as well as you can pretty much misenchant anything that you feel like. So say your Twindra, say you wanted to get up to 6 attack, and you don't feel like going up to Pantera, or Pantera is going to be misenchanted with the water. You can play around with a lot of misenchanting as well as use tsunamis to your advantage. So yeah, that's the main deck. It felt really good. Besides a few cards I think I would change, just like the drops of Leaf didn't really put in the kind of work that I thought they would. But other than that, everything felt pretty good. More Arcturuses, I would definitely consider trying to fit in maybe one more. I think 2 would maybe be good, because it's a card that's nice to draw when you're kind of on the back, on like your back foot, and if you pick up an Arcturus, then you can usually put in work with it. But everything else felt really good. I don't think you need to go any heavier on the dragons. There was one game where I was like, man, I wish I had a 3rd Cryovern, because you are turboing it out. Once these are in the underworld, the strategy feels like you're like, oh no, what do I do now? So it's like, if you want to mess around with one more Cryovern, I might do it just to see what it feels like a few games. But other than that, I think it's fine, because you do have the Hydrakes and everything else to back you up. So I feel like maybe if you just put in more Arcturuses, you don't really need to worry about having a 3rd one in there. And then the Hydra, yeah. So that's Dragons. Let's go on to the Spirit deck. So the Spirit deck is going to be the 2 Zaptor for Jolton. You probably could just get away with playing 1, but it's better to have them just in case, and then burn the second one that you don't use later for some Rainbow Rune like Gorgon's Gaze or PTA or Shield or something. The minimum amount of spirits that you can play for a Pantera line is 3, so we are only playing 3 in here. That's because you just go Hydrake, Twinja Crash, and then you have your Pantera out, and he's just going to be completely misenchanted. It works out beautifully. I don't think you need any more than 3, because you're misenchanting Hydrake so much. Anyways, next we're going to have 5 Leviathan, which I think worked out really well. I was able to misenchant, but also activate the effects with waters that I needed, and I didn't feel like I needed any more or less than this. Honestly, the Spirit deck ratio felt really good. And then that leaves us with 10 Flurmine. This part also felt good. You're just using up your Flurmine in the beginning, get these 5 in there, and then now these are used for the rest of your effects. Usually to get these in there, you're usually using your card effects. You're not all mulliganing in there. So cards like Arcturus, that's what these are for. And cards like Blizzard, and then the rest of these is for your Cryoling, Mountains of Boreas, Misenchanting, all that kind of stuff. So it worked out pretty well. I was pleasantly surprised with how easy it was to manage my spirits and how straightforward the deck was. So yeah, that's the deck. Enjoy the games. Sorry if the recording was a little weird. I kind of last minute decided to do the recording, so they're not going to be the highest of quality. I was trying to keep count of spirits, but I was messing up with that too. I'll get better at that. I'll try to maybe make some overlays for the casual nights and stuff like that, just to make them a little more pretty and more fun to watch. But still, they're great games, and you can kind of keep up with yourself and still enjoy them. So thank you for watching the deck profile, and enjoy the games.